All right, so in this video, I want to quickly go over, the transformer losses basics, I guess you could say, because before we start filling in the values into this transformer, some of these losses, I just want to quickly touch base on what each of those really mean at a very basic level. So yeah, let's look at that. So we've got the transformer. So I've got the winding on the left side here. I've got the winding on the right side. And let's assume, I'm just going to assume that, we're getting a 230 kV on this side, and we're getting a 25 kV on this side, right? So this is basically, I guess, a 3D way of how the transformer looks like, and this is kind of a circuit, the equivalent circuit I'm trying to make here. Now, you know, in reality, what's going to happen is when the current is going to flow through when the current is going to flow through this red winding, one thing that's going to happen, you know, we all understand that anytime a current flows through any sort of a physical matter, like whether it be a copper cable or anything, there's got to be some sort of a resistive loss which is associated with the current just flowing through the physical material. I'm not even talking about the inductance at the moment. I'm talking about the resistive losses. So because this is a cable, it's going to go through this copper winding. So the copper in itself has an inherent resistance, and that resistance will basically give some opposition, and that needs to be accounted for. So because I drew that in red, so I'm just gonna kind of draw that in red over here for the primary side, and let's just draw that on in red for the secondary side as well. Now what's going to happen is that when the transformer now is going to be current is going to be going through this, another thing that would happen is that the we could say the the magnetic fields will then establish in this core, and this could be an iron core, let's say, right? And it will establish like this. But in reality, that's the way. The reason we have the current on the secondary side is because we've got the current on the right side, which is then creating magnetic fields. But because we've got this core, and that core has very low reluctance, or which is basically, think of it as a resistance for magnetic fields. It it provides a very low impedance path for the magnetic fields. And what it does is that that a lot of the magnetic field then kind of goes through the iron core, and then a lot of that gets transferred over to the secondary coil, and of course the current is then induced in the secondary coil right there, like that. But in reality, what happens is that some of that flux, or the magnetic fields, don't make it to the or don't get contributed towards making the secondary current, and they get leaked out just like that, in perhaps in the air, like this, kind of like that. And some of it, instead of going right through through the windings, it kind of go in that direction, and that direction, and that direction. So in yellow, and that loss or leakage, I'm just gonna represent that on the primary side with the yellow color here, and anything that I've lost on the right side, I'm just gonna show that in yellow color over here, like that, right? So now we have got and this right here is this right here is called X, or so shown as impedance, and this is called the leakage, like that. And then in red, what we had over there was essentially resistance, and this is generally seen as copper. Okay, and then this is our copper, right? But that is for winding number 2, right? And then this one right here was the X leakage, right? But for winding number 2. Now, keep in mind that we can always represent the resistances and leakages. We can always shift them or show them onto the left side. Again, this is the basics of transformer. You guys can read up on it online. I'll try to add some nice videos that can kind of go over these basics as well. But you can move the resistances on the left side as well. So then in reality, what you can have is we're not going to have on the secondary anything like this, but rather a 1 value for our copper and X leakage, but that basically would be accounted for R1, sorry, or you could say like, winding 1 plus winding 2 copper losses. And same thing over here as well for leakage. You would have, that leakage would be one value, but that would be winding 1 plus a winding 2 leakage would be accounted for over here. So in this video, I want to stop here quickly just so you guys understand that the copper losses right there, and then the leakage current is that's what it means. And then we can kind of come back over here and you can see that right there it says positive sequence leakage reactance. That's what the what I'm showing in yellow means. And then anything in red, which was copper, right there's got copper losses. Right there is what it represents. Now his